go, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Good evening, council, staff, and the general public. Welcome to our regular council meeting of May 3rd, 2021. I have a motion moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Lyle Warden. Be resolved that the May 3rd, 2021 council meeting of the Township of South Glengarry now be opened at 7 p.m. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. If I can ask everyone to please rise for the playing of our national anthem. Okay, thank you. I have a motion moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Martin Lang. Be resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry approve the agenda. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda, Madam Clerk?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. We have the addition of an item under other business, which will become item 7B2. And that is a letter from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing regarding consultation on council code of conducts. Additionally, we have a couple of items that have been requested to be moved from information only into other business. Those being the proclamation for Emergency Preparedness Week, as well as item 7D7, a resolution regarding invasive phragmites and road maintenance.
Okay, thank you. So we'll throw the Emergency Preparedness Week under number 2, and then Mr. Councillor Lang's resolution for road management as the next one. Is there any other additions to the agenda? Not seeing none, so the motion would be as amended. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. Okay, is there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Not seeing none. In the previous minutes of April 19th, I have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of South Glengarry held on April 19th, 2021, including the closed session minutes, be adopted as circulated. All in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you. And I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Sam McDonnell. Be resolved that the minutes of the public meeting of the Council of the Township of South Glengarry held on April 19th, 2021 be adopted as circulated. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Okay, we'll move right into our presentations and delegations. We have 2 this evening, so we'll start with the short-term rentals. We have Stephanie St. Dennis Casper. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hi. Okay, so I'll go ahead and
Yep, go ahead.
present. So over the years, there's been more and more short-term rentals in my area, especially with the pandemic in the last year, and now with the increasing housing prices. I think we're going to be seeing more maybe this year. So for health and safety reasons and security reasons, I think we need to have regulations for them. They can be disruptive to quiet communities. And it's not just about the noise either, although noise is definitely an issue. There are things like campfires, the smoke. The renters just seem to want to do that at night, no matter what the weather is, whether it's windy, whether it's like smog, heavy humidity in the area. So we do end up getting smoked out often. There's concern too about the fire being too close to trees, houses, and fences. The lots are small. They're 50 by 100, most of them. So there's not a lot of room for that. And no matter what the weather is, the renters seem to want to do these campfires. I think there needs to be a limit on the number of people, depending on the number of rooms available in the house that's for rent. Right now, there's no limit, and there's lots of people in one cottage, more than they would be allowed, let's say, in a hotel or a controlled environment, a bed and breakfast. Another problem we see is that often the renters invite family and friends over. So it ends up being a lot of people in a small, sometimes cottage. Another issue is the high traffic in the area. It's just a one-lane road. And the parking is also another issue. So they end up parking on lawns, on the road, partially on the road that's already just a one lane. They're not respecting the 20-kilometer-an-hour speed limit either. So that's another issue. The community is not created for a high traffic area. A big problem is that the host is not on site or nearby to ensure that there's nothing disruptive that occurs. I kind of feel like we pay high taxes to be in a residential zone and not a commercial zone. I kind of feel like it's going that way towards a commercial zone rather than residential. And I don't think should put up with a constant flow of strangers coming and going, more traffic on a one-lane road, parking issues. So I think owners of those doing the short-term rentals should have to buy permits or licenses if they're going to operate it like a business, pay taxes, report income, limit the number of people per bedroom for safety issues. They should be subject to safety inspections too, I think, and make sure they're up to code with anything, and should have to pay fines for any violations or bylaws that aren't respected, really. So I think we see that it is becoming a problem in other cities. There's starting to be some bylaws for them in Toronto, Ottawa, and even South Dundas, as one of the councillors forwarded me information about that. Even the South Dundas Township is starting to create a draft for bylaws to pertain to short-term rentals. So I think it's going to be needed in our community too. Yeah. So I think I had a couple councillors answer my email stating that they didn't think laws needed to be created or regulations, but until you've lived in one of those communities and you see what happens, I don't think you realize the impact of them, what it does to a community. So I think that's, if we look at the draft for the South Dundas Township bylaws, I think that would be a good start. It looks pretty good. It would be a good starting point. So that's it for me. Oh, I can't hear you.
Yep. Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate your presentation. I'll just open it up to any comments or questions from other members of the council. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just thank you to the St. Denis Caspers for taking the time to put together the information they did this evening and for bringing the issue to our attention. Quick question for them. I'd like to get a sense of how often or how regular this is an issue near where they are. Is this something, if someone is renting out their home once a year, or is this something where it seems it's much more frequent? If they could give some, sense to that, please.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie?
Yeah, it's becoming more frequent. I know at the point, the place right at the point it's almost weekly. They're renting out weekly. Very often that we see it. And then there's other houses too. I'm not sure how often it is, but it's always throughout the summer. Like it wouldn't be throughout the winter or fall or spring, I don't think, but it happens a lot in the summer. Our direct neighbor 3 years ago was doing it and now just gave a notice to their long-term renter, and he's going to start doing that this summer. So she's been there 3 years and has to be out by the end of June. So I just feel like we're going to start seeing a lot of these things happening in our neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Warden?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you as well for your presentation. I was one of the members of council that replied to your letter once I received it. I am looking forward to see what staff brings back to council for recommendations on this, and I'll look at it closely and we'll go from there. Thank you very much for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Is there any other comments or questions from members of council? Councillor McAdell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to say as well, thank you for your presentation tonight, and I as well look forward to hearing what staff have to say. I did respond to you, although it was a little late. We had a issue with the email anyways, but nonetheless, happy to have you come tonight and give us your point of view, and again, look forward to seeing what staff comes up with.
Okay, thank you. So Stephanie, normally what happens, I'm not sure if you were explained to it before, but normally what happens after your presentation will go back to staff. Staff will do some investigation and consultation with other municipalities, I guess, in the area, or even across the province to see how they deal with this issue. And they'll bring recommendations back at a later date in respect of what their comments will be at an upcoming meeting. I can't guarantee when that will be exactly, but it will be an upcoming meeting, probably either late May or the beginning of June. But
so I would be notified. I would be notified of.
I'll make sure that staff does notify you when that will be, so that you're more than welcome to come in and as a public member and listen to what the comments of the staff will be and what other questions or comments that members of council will have. I see our CAO on. Mr. Mills, comment or question?
Just through you, Mr. Mayor. I know you're in terms of timelines, so it would be important. Also, we're hearing from Ms. St. Denis and Mr. Casper about their views, but we'd also want, I think, to open up to some community consultation as well. That so it might take a little longer than the end of May, early June.
Okay.
But we'll certainly keep in contact with you as we go along. Just another question, if I could ask, in terms of is there ever been anything through the municipal accommodations tax looked into through short-term rentals with the municipality? No. Okay.
No, not that I'm aware of. No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you. So as Mr. Mills stated, they'll do their homework in regards to coming back with some type of a solution if we can at an upcoming council meeting. Like you said, I'm not sure exactly when that will be, but we will keep you posted in regards to when that is.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks, Jason. Good to see us.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move to the next one is the regional waste management. Mr. Ali.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me this evening. I'm going to go through a very brief presentation. I think most have seen the presentation that was given to the county. So I'm going to share my screen if that's okay. And can you see that? Yep. Okay. So just a bit of a recap. Where we are with the study, we've completed phases 1 and 2. And we have the draft, as you know, we have the draft to report on that. And we're moving into phase 3, which is the collaboration opportunities, and then the implementation strategy under phase 4. So this slide, just to give you a little bit of a flavor, this sort of encapsulates what all the municipalities are doing with respect to the various components of the waste management system. And as you can see, it's a very mixed and varied sort of set of services that are provided across the board. Many similarities, some differences as well, let's say. Looking ahead, between now and 2044, so the next 25 years or so, a few things we want to point out. One being the transition of recycling at the end of 2025 from the municipalities to the producers of packaging. And that is through legislation and pending regulations that should be forthcoming fairly shortly. The other being the closure of 4 of the landfill sites within the next 8 years across the 6 municipalities. So these are 2 issues looking ahead that need to be considered by the group as a whole going forward. Now, here we've noted that we've got the North Lancaster and the Beaver Brook sites closing in 2025 and 2033 respectively. I think at the county's presentation, we were advised that, there may be a preference by council to expand those sites or extend the use as opposed to closing them and redirecting the waste to a private facility. So we've done some preliminary sort of cost calculations based on what North Dundas and South Dundas are doing. And roughly speaking, just very high level, the estimated cost per landfill for an extension is somewhere in the order of $2 to $2.5 million. That would be spent over a period of time. And by that, I mean, for any landfill that's closing in a particular year, the effort to seek an extension has to begin, I would say, probably 5 to 6 years before that. So there'd be some upfront cost to get the approval. There likely be some very specific investigations in terms of environmental impacts and so on, an environmental assessment with public input. And then, of course, you get to the design at the time of closure or the year of closure. To get the extension, you get the design and then moving on beyond the closure year into the extended period. So, so what this chart shows is sort of a profile for those 2 sites. If it's council's wish to extend the use of those sites, then this sort of gives you an idea of what that profile that cost profile would look like, the red line, going forward over that period. And of course, during an extension, you would tend to use the site, the extended site, a piece at a time and close off and then continue on. So you'd have periodic investments at the site. And part of those 2 peaks you see there to the right would also include the equipment that will be required. So a compactor to be replaced as you extend the sites and continue to use them. Now, some of the key challenges, you've probably seen some of this information before, that the 6 municipalities, from discussions and sort of the information we've looked at, one of the issues is that at the landfill sites, there are no weigh scales, and therefore it means that estimating or calculating the exact tonnage of waste going in is based on a conversion as opposed to actual weights. One of the key things, of course, I just mentioned is the diminishing capacity that's available to yourselves and to other municipalities who are probably, a tighter position than you are at the moment because their sites are closing sooner. And of course, there's the increasing liability of having closed landfill sites. So that that closure and post-closure care that's required, it's for the most part unfunded at the moment. Some of it is funded, but a lot of it is unfunded at the moment. So that's a cost, that's an obligation to every municipality with a landfill site that has to be looked at going forward. There's also the increasing costs as a general sort of take on waste management with limited resources. And from discussions with the municipalities, the staff and equipment resources that are available geared towards servicing their own needs at the moment. So there are things like truck maintenance for those who do collection in-house, to have the vehicles be equipped and ready to go. So maintenance costs, coverage for downtime and things like that become issues. There's also the difficulty with increasing waste diversion. I think this is not in SDG alone in the 6 municipalities, but I think most municipalities reach a plateau beyond which it's very difficult to increase the waste diversion unless you get into things like organics, which forms a large percentage of your garbage. And then, of course, you've got the recycling transition over to the producers, and that in and of itself requires some coordinated effort on the part of the 6 municipalities, which would all be transferred at the same time at some point in 2025. For our purposes in this study, we've assumed it's December 31st of 2025. And of course, you have limited staff resources, as I mentioned, and particularly to do waste management planning going forward. So what are the potential collaboration options? And the one at the top there is it's sort of the low-hanging fruit, if you will. There could be collaboration on things like public education, consistency in messaging around waste management, transitioning to the producers of the recycling program and dealing with any issues, having a plan for that, and also looking at proactively planning ahead for waste management as a whole. There's also under waste collection, things like sharing of equipment, joint tenders, if you will, providing emergency coverage from one municipality to another. And in terms of disposal and landfill capacity, there's the opportunity to share landfill capacity in some way, whether it's redirecting waste from one municipality to another to optimize the use of remaining capacity, or there's also the ability to allow sharing of access to the drop-off facilities that municipalities may have that residents from one or more, 2 or more municipalities may share. Then, of course, there's the collective approach to accessing private sector disposal capacity. If you go as a group, there's a good chance, the bargaining power would be a lot better. And similarly, working with Cornwall on specific components of the waste management system, perhaps on disposal as well as organics would be 2 of the areas that are possibilities. And then at the bottom there, it shows the opportunity to develop some consistency in the level of service. So what that means is just trying to get, bag limits to be a little bit more consistent, how certain services are offered to the residents, what options they may have to make things more convenient for them, leaf and yard waste collection, the frequency of that, and so on and so forth. So a draft of that will come in the next phase of the review of the study. So what are the options for working together? You'll see here, you can municipalities can work under agreement with one another. You can have SDG take the lead, or as a and under both those scenarios, you can also work with the city of Cornwall, depending on the component, and as long as there's a mutual benefit to both sides. So this evening, Mr. Mayor, there has been some there've been some questions that have been sent out to all the municipalities to get some feedback from the respective councils and staff. And there are 4 questions. This is the first, which is if there are any opportunities of particular interest, collaboration opportunities of particular interest to you, then we'd like to hear what those might be, so that as we go into phase 3, we can make sure those are included and addressed in there. Question 2 is really dealing with if there's any specific information you believe that you may need in order to decide what sort of collaboration effort to support. If there's anything in particular that you may need, then you can let us know, and we'll try to make that available to you as we go forward. Question 3 is whether or not you have any particular preference on who should lead a coordinated effort, whether it's a particular municipality, a group of municipalities, or SDG. And as indicated before, there are different mechanisms to make that happen. And finally, question 4 is if there's anything unique to your municipality that you wish for us to know going forward with the collaboration phase of the review, then we'd be happy to look at that as well. And that's the end of my presentation, Mr. Mayor. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Would you be able to remove the presentation, Mr. Alley, just so I can see all members of council and staff?
I can.
Thank you. Perfect. Derek, I just have a question in regards to when are you hoping to do phase 3? Like, when are you looking for these answers or answers to these questions?
I would say, I'll be honest, as soon as you can. That's best, because we're trying to get around all 6 municipalities. We've done 1. We have you today and a couple. So the sooner we can get them all means we can advance phase 3. We can get going on it.
Okay, thank you. I just wasn't sure if there was a timeline in regards to when you wanted to do that, but sooner the better. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to questions or comments. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Ali, for the presentation. I guess the information that I feel that our municipality needs, as well as the others, is what is this producer responsibility legislation going to look like? I think it's like this big elephant in the room. We're all facing this new legislation that's coming at us at the speed of the 401, and it's nobody knows anything about it. I think that's probably the most. Anyways, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. Did you have a comment, Derek, to that, or?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. What I can say is that there are some fundamentals, meaning that there are dates, as you indicated, and this group of municipalities in 2025. One of the things that's clear is that after that, municipalities will not be responsible for recycling, either collection or processing. So it's an item that you're mandated to do right now that will be removed from the from the Environmental Protection Act. You'll no longer be obligated to do that.
Okay, thank you. Back to you, Deputy Mayor Warren.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, Mr. Ali, I guess the metrics behind that is that something you recommend, that we don't have to worry about recycling in a couple of years? you know, we're at a fork in the road ourself. We basically have our contracts are up for renewal. You know, do we invest, come in house? Like, there's a lot of questions going on right now. So it's, anyways, been distracted with somebody else talking in the room. I apologize.
That's okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess the answer to your question is that the transition is imminent. What we are waiting to see is what the parameters are going to be as indicated in the upcoming regulations. So it's really getting in position to be able to transition over so that residents can expect, what they'll see come 2025 or 2026 when the transition occurs, so that there are no major blips in terms of the services that are offered to residents, because the producers will be responsible for waste recycling collection at that time. So I think if you're planning ahead, I think you have to look at that transition date as a target and work with that. That's a given that's going to happen. Unless, of course, something drastic happens at the provincial level and they decide to change that. But as it stands today, that's the date that it will occur.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Warden. I'll go to Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Derek, for your presentation. The Environment Committee had the pleasure of having Derek present to us last week. So some of the questions, I'm going to add maybe a bit more information. So with regard, like on our end here, I think regardless of whether we're collaborating or not collaborating going forward, we need to get, we need to understand what's the future for our landfills. What we understand or what gets presented to us that Environment Committee is, for North Lancaster, there's not tons of space, but potentially, you could add a second lift, you could expand the landfill vertically. And at Beaver Brook, because it's right beside a PSW, the expansion of that one is not as straightforward as we might think. So basically, we need to get on that situation and make sure we have clarity on what the future is for those landfills and what it might cost, whether we're part of a regional solution or not. A couple of other things we discussed, and this is, to highlight what Derek has already said, is in terms of collaborating, I think there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration. We don't have a lot of resources in-house to deal with waste management, and it has its challenges. Probably we would be able to slow the fill of our landfills if we had more resources to put to it, but that has additional cost. If we were collaborating, perhaps we could have folks who were dedicated to that role, but managing, more sites. It also has challenges for, providing education and keeping, communication when it comes to waste management and when we have changes with the program. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there in collaborating more with neighbors where we could share resources and be able to do have a stronger control on some of those assets. And we're in because we don't have our in-house garbage. I think we're in a position where our citizens don't typically, they're not attached to who is picking up the garbage. So whether it be the counties that were organizing it or whether we partnered with another municipality, I think as long as the level of service stays the same, I think that is something that would be again, if there's savings that come along with that, people would be very open to that. And also in terms of like working with Cornwall, I think there's some more opportunities there. We've had an offer at the Environment Committee for the manager of Environment at City of Cornwall to come and present to us about the co-digestion project that they have there that could potentially take some of our organic waste, again, all with a goal of reducing our, improving our waste diversion, reducing how much pressure we're putting on our landfill. So I think there's definitely a lot of opportunity in collaboration that would help us, bring more value to our citizens, to be more efficient, save money. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from members of council? Not seeing none. Thanks very much, Derek, for your presentation and joining us this evening at our regular council meeting. And we'll certainly get our questions or comments back to you as soon as we possibly can.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, our pleasure. Thank you. Okay, we'll move into staff reports. Appoint Deputy Clerk, Mrs. Campo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Good evening, Council. So you will recall back in January, Council approved a reorganization plan that involved the creation of several positions within the municipality, as well as the elimination of a few and the combination of a few positions. So over the last 3 months, there's been a lot of wheels in motion, a lot of change as a result of this reorganization. And upon review and observation over the last few months, a lot of the changes have resulted in some great efficiencies, and there's other areas where we've identified that we need to pivot a little bit from the original plan. So you'll recall the deputy clerk was created. That position was created through the reorg, with economic development and communications also being added to that role. And so, in order to create the most efficiency out of those 3 unique roles, administration further reorganized there and removed the economic development and communications portion from the deputy clerk role. So Shauna Beggs, who up until this point in time held essentially all 3 of those positions under the title of deputy clerk, has accepted the role of economic development and communications coordinator. We posted the deputy clerk position internally, and which resulted in a successful internal applicant with Crystal Lebrun, who was our executive assistant. So in order for Ms. Lebrun to carry out her role and statutory duties as deputy clerk, we require a bylaw approved by council appointing her as deputy clerk, which is what's before you tonight. So subject to any questions, that is the report.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Campo, any questions or comments from members of council? Not seeing none. I do have a motion moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Lyle Warden. Be resolved that staff report 60-2021 be received and that bylaw 35-2021, being a bylaw to appoint a deputy clerk, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 3rd day of May 2021. You heard the motion. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. And we'll move to the SD&G library request, Martintown Little Free Library. Mrs. Campo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. At the April 19th meeting, council received a request from SDG Library requesting the establishment of a free little library at the Martintown Community Center. And council at that time directed staff to come back with a resolution in support of that initiative. So that is what is before you tonight. Since the last meeting, I've had some discussions with the staff at the library, and they informed me that their staff pretty well take care of the whole initiative. They oversee the installation once we figure out where we would like it to be placed. They also look after supplying the books that go in it, as well as checking in on it periodically to remove anything that shouldn't be in there or make sure that it's stocked up. So this project looks like a win-win for everybody, and the resolution's before you tonight to support it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments, Deputy Mayor Warden?
Mr. Mayor, I'm looking forward to this being installed, and I think it'll be a great addition to the Martintown community. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you. I have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that staff report 61-2021 be received and that the council approve the establishment of a little free library at the Martintown Community Center in partnership with the SDG Library and direct administration to engage with the SDG Library staff to determine a mutually agreed upon location for its installation. You heard the motion. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. And number 3 is the housekeeping transfer of airport lands. Mrs. Campo.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. This resolution, Council, is essentially a housekeeping item. Back in December, Council approved the transfer of lands that were owned by the township to be transferred to the Airport Commission. At that time, whenever that transfer was executed, inadvertently, there was one pin, which was a small portion of the lot that is labeled G on the map in your agenda package. That pin was not included in the transfer documents. So this resolution is essentially just to approve the transfer of that final pin to the airport.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Pretty self-explanatory. I have a motion moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Martin Lang. Be resolved that staff report 62-2021 be received and that the council of the Township of South Glengarry approves the transfer of PIN number 67131-0412 to the Cornwall Regional Airport Commission Incorporated, and furthermore that the mayor and the clerk be authorized to sign all relevant documents. You heard the motion. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll move into resolution streetlight charges. Mr. McDonald.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you see this image right now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so essentially we did our LED conversion in 2016. It kind of spanned 2 years. We were waiting for that to pay itself off. It has since done so. I think we had some successive years of $70,000 to $85,000 of reserve transfers. So now we're passing that on to the users of our hamlets. So again, this is our hydroelectric areas, which serve most of our hamlets: Lancaster, Martintown, North Lancaster, Green Valley, Baynesville, etc. So yeah, 2016, we raised our price. It's a local area improvement charge to $91.20. Now we're seeing that we have enough savings to pass along the benefit to the users. At $47.72, we'll still collect some transfer to reserve. It won't be over a burden. This price is subject if price increases happen to increase, but I see for probably the next 5 years, we'll be able to keep it at $47.72, which is a great savings to the end users. And yeah, that's a pretty short one. So it's to approve that decrease.
Okay, thank you. That's a great news story, Mr. McDonald. That just about cuts it in half, to be honest. So that's great to see. Councillor McDonnell, then Deputy Mayor Warden, then Councillor Jaworski.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. McDonald, for the presentation. I'm very happy to see that savings. I guess 2 questions, or I guess a question and a comment. Do you have any idea, I guess, roughly how many taxpayers would be paying that bill? Like what kind of savings, if you could put it into a number, would we actually be looking at out of people's pockets?
Oh gosh, I do have that information. I don't have it on me. I'd say we collect about 116,000 in revenue, so 1,000 plus individuals will save about that amount of money. Because you have the village of Lancaster, South Lancaster, Williamstown. You're talking 700, 800 homes there. North Lancaster, Green Valley, Martintown. So I can get you an exact number, but it's a significant amount of all your hamlets that are not serviced by Cornwall Electric will benefit from this.
Just for curiosity, if you had maybe just at the next meeting, just come up with a quick number if you can, Mr. McDonald. It's not as long as it's not time consuming for you to put that together. But
no, it's just looking at our billing registry. I haven't committed to memory.
I agree. It'd be just interesting to see what kind of savings we are saving the taxpayers and how many people would be gaining from that savings.
Yeah, it's not a lot, but it's at the same time, when you accumulate it all together over, say, 1,000 homes, it is a substantial number. And I guess just a comment to further that I look forward to seeing a deal like this, maybe with Cornwall in the next few weeks. So good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you and I sat on council when this first come across our table. It just goes to show you when you invest in new, clean technology, yes, the investment at the forefront can seem a little daunting, but here we are 5 years down the road and we're able to give our residents better lights and a lower bill. So I'm certainly looking forward to, in line with Councillor McDonnell's comments, seeing these lights in the Glen Walter area. I think they'll be a great addition. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So Deputy Mayor Warden, Councillor McDonnell, they've said it very well already, that this was a very wise decision and it's bringing big dividends to our residents. I mean, I think it's important to note that, like with streetlights, it's not just a matter of changing the bulbs. You know, you got to change the apparatus as well. So in addition to, putting in, money into that infrastructure and upgrading the technology, it's pretty impressive that it does cut the cost to the homeowner in half. So well done. Yes, as we look forward to this happening in the Glen Walter neck of the township as well, served by Cornwall Electric. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McDonald.
If I may, I believe the savings on electricity alone is upwards of 60%, and maintenance goes down to next to nothing, because these, like LEDs, they don't, like, they are what they are. They don't, they're not like a high pressure sodium. They don't go out in amounts. And we were speaking to somebody from the city of Cornwall, and they were scheduling, instead of 20 or 30 visits to poles, they have substantially more a month. They now schedule 5 a year. So that's like, it's a mammoth difference in terms of the maintenance. So electricity cost goes down, maintenance goes to next to nil. And if it lasts 20 years, I mean, as we see there, significant savings to our users, and we're going to have reserves sufficient to replace it next time without going deficit in the system, which is like, it's just been a grand win for us. And I look forward to working with Cornwall Electric as well. So it will be a win there too.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing none, I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Lyle Warden. Be resolved that staff report 63-2021 be received, and that the council of the township of South Glengarry approves adjusting the annual charge for streetlight users on hydroelectric to $47.42. Again, good news story. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. And we'll move into fleet management, number 5, Mr. LeBlanc.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Good evening. Through you, Mr. Mayor. In the roads department, we have 3 units, snowplow units, that have reached their end of service life. Our life expectancy, we expect, is 15 years for these units, and we now have 3 units that have reached 0 years remaining. 2003 Freightliner single axle and a 2002 International Tandem. We also have an 2004 International Tandem that has reached the end of service. So the units above that I've just mentioned have not been budgeted for in 2021. So to establish a manageable replacement schedule for our fleet, administration is recommending the purchase of a single axle truck and one tandem truck to replace a 2003 Freightliner single axle and a 2002 International Tandem. Administration will prepare a replacement schedule for the remaining vehicles to be budgeted for on an ongoing basis going forward. The combined cost of the tandem and the single axle are approximately $550,000. Administration recommends that these vehicles be purchased with funds from the Roads and Equipment Reserve. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Blanc. Just a quick question or clarification for me. When we visited the garage in Williamstown, the one that had the frame that was all rotted, was that the tandem or the single axle? I can't remember.
It was the single axle.
Was the single axle one? Okay. Thank you. I will go to Deputy Mayor Warden, then Councillor Lang.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Chris, I'm happy to see this on our desk. After having the roads tour, a lot of things were brought to our attention, so it's nice to seeing it on paper. I just want the tandem truck that's going to be, or pardon me, the single axle. Both trucks are going to be automatic, right? I feel like the technology's gone forward enough that we don't need to be dealing with standard trucks.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, good. All right, that was my only question. I feel that both of those vehicles earned their retirement.
Thank you. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thank you, Chris, for the presentation. I'm glad to see it get back to us so quickly after our tour. And I'm hoping, I think just the fact that we get it here tonight, and I'm hoping it's approved tonight and you can get on to order them, because I know in this day and age, it might be tricky to get them here by fall, but I have all the confidence that you're going to be able to do it. So speaking in favor of it, and thanks for bringing it back so quick.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Jaworski, Councillor McDonnell, back to Deputy Mayor Warden.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc, for your report. I think when you're saying we have 0 years remaining on some of the units, you're being kind, because I think we're actually into the negative a few years on some of those. They were due, definitely. I'd just like you to comment on the this 15 years life expectancy that you're suggesting that we follow. I just want to know, like, how does that compare sort of to like industry average, or, you know, neighbors or the counties?
Industry average is roughly between 12 and 15 years. For our purposes, 15 years would be sufficient. I think anything more than 15 years, as proven as what we have now, is pushing it a little too much. We do have a lot of breakdowns, and with those years of vehicles, it's hard to get parts a lot of times for these vehicles. So instead of it being down for a day or a couple hours, it could be down for weeks at a time. So usually we try to get to 15 years, and basically in year 14, we order a truck to have for in year 15. That's kind of what our plan going forward is.
Okay. I think you told me that at the counties, they use 12 years.
I believe counties is roughly 12 years, yes.
Okay. But we're going to stretch, we're good by stretching it just a little bit more.
Now, the difference, I guess,
thank
between the counties and municipality is the counties would put more mileage on it because they're running 24 hours a day versus we're only running 12 hours a day, if that's, so the mileage on their vehicles would go on a lot faster. That's why they decrease a few years. But Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for this report, Chris, as it came back so quick. I know from my 2 recent trips down to the roads garage and looking through the fleet, I know I was always under the impression that maybe our trucks weren't always that bad, but I think it was a little of the good from far from good with a few of the units. I know especially we had talked about, I think the one we're talking about here, the frame issues. I don't think it'd take too long with a ball peen hammer to make it fail with safety. I think it's good to see this coming, and I think we need to get on a better replacement schedule as you've put forward here, and really focus on the management of our fleet. So I'm glad to see you taking that initiative early. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I did have 2 other points that I forgot to mention. One was, I hope that even though it's kind of late in the season, maybe you could do a quick check with other municipalities to see if they're in the market for similar trucks, and maybe we could do a joint tender, save some funds. And the second one was the life cycle of the pickup trucks. I mean, clearly we have a 2003 that's still on the road. We have a 2006 that's on the road, and we have a 2009. I think 10 years for those trucks is maybe a little short. And I think maybe we could extend those beyond. I mean, if the 2003 is still on the road 18 years later, I think if we're, replacing it at 10 years, it's probably coming off the road too soon. Keeping it 18 years is probably too long, but I think maybe we could look at those metrics as well, because I think the technology in the trucks with the, the fuel injection and stuff, the vehicles are lasting longer.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McDonnell.
Just a quick comment to that with in regards to what Deputy Mayor Warden said. I agree with him. Maybe it'd be nice as well to see some of the metrics that the other municipalities and counties are using. I'm sure, as you said before, Mr. Mayor, I'm sure the counties are using a quicker turnaround metric for a lot of their vehicles based on the mileage, but it'd be interesting to see what maybe North Dundas and South Dundas and Stormont have to do.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mills?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. To Deputy Mayor Warden's point, I think this is just a start for staff here, having a comprehensive review of the fleet and making sure it's in front of council, not just at budget time, but maybe throughout the year, maybe a few times, so that you can see where we're at. But another thing that might be missing is repairs and cost. So how much a vehicle is costing to repair after the 10-year cycle, and that perhaps when you have a vehicle that's 10 years old and you put it on Gov Deals or you sell it, the value you get in that and reinvest in a new one. So we'll go a little bit further with our investigations with staff. What we wanted to do was bring this forward to you now. We have the reserves to do it, and we're not expecting to get back on track within 6 months with the replacement, but our intention as staff is over the next few years to get back on, so that when it comes to budget time at the end of the year, there's no surprises. Or when we get into a budget year, like we're into May, almost halfway through the year, next May we would expect we're not bringing something of this magnitude to you in May.
Yep, good points. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing none. I have a motion moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Martin Lang. Be resolved that staff report 64-2021 be received and that the council of the township of South Glengarry approve issuing a tender for a tandem truck and a single axle truck, and furthermore that the purchase price of these vehicles be drawn from the roads and equipment reserve. Any other comments or questions? So this will go to tender, Mr. LeBlanc. It'll come back for council's approval once we get the tenders back.
That's correct. That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted for clarification. So you heard the motion. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Okay, we'll move to number 6, the Bruning zoning bylaw amendment. Mrs. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this property is located in the village of Lancaster, just east of, just west of the main street on the south side of South Terrace Street. The purpose of the application was to create a 3-unit townhouse development that would contain 3 units in the basement portion of the townhouse, resulting in a total of 6 units altogether. You may recall at our public meeting on March 17th, we showed renderings of what the apartment units would look like from the exterior. And also in that public meeting, there was a request to reduce the rear yard setback in one location to 1.2 meters. And so going through this process, we received no comments from the public at all, positive or negative. It was a very quiet and easy public process. We were able to confirm that we're able to service this proposed development. And you'll see in the staff report that I am recommending it to be approved. It certainly conforms to the provincial policy statement. The provincial policy statement is very supportive of development in an urban settlement area on full services. And it also conforms to our official plan. And then of course the zoning amendment would allow it to conform to the zoning bylaw. We were able to complete this process quite quickly, well within the 90 days, as you'll see in the staff report. And we look forward to receiving the site plan control application for this development if council chooses to approve it this evening. So my recommendation is to approve the proposed zoning amendment. And please let me know if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I said it at the previous meeting. I think this is going to be great for the village of Lancaster. There's a shortage of housing. And I also wanted to make the comment, it's nice to see a former elected official from a different municipality in SD&G investing in South Glengarry. We're very happy to to have this. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing none. I have a motion moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Lyle Warden. Be resolved that staff report 65-2021 be received and bylaw number 36-2021, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 38-09, the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the township of South Glengarry, for the property legally described as part of lots 2 and 3, registered plan 26 in the geographic village of Lancaster, now in the township of South Glengarry, the county of Glengarry, to rezone the subject site from residential 2 to residential 3, exception 5, to permit the development of a 6-unit townhouse with a reduced rear yard setback from 6 meters to 1.2 meters to the proposed southeast corner of the townhouse, be read a first, second, third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 3rd day of May 2021. And the council of the township of South Glengarry confirms that no public comments were received on this application. Therefore, there was no effect on the decision. You heard the motion. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Haley. And we'll move to Sheephead's Bistro temporary patio agreement. Mrs. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the purpose of this staff report this evening is to request council to renew the patio agreement. In 2013, this property was developed to create commercial space on the main floor and residence on the upper floor. And that commercial space is now the home of Sheephead Restaurant. It's located right on County Road 2 in the settlement area of Glenwalter. When this development was created, insufficient parking was able to be provided. However, the property owner had applied for a minor variance to reduce the required parking, knowing that there'd be opportunities to park along the streets during the busiest hours of the restaurant. When this request came before us Jeepers, I'm having a hard time speaking this evening. I'm sorry. When it came before us last year, we looked at alternatives to see how we could make this work, given it was so difficult during the COVID restrictions. And the owner of Sheephead, Mr. Mustafa, was able to seek permission from Precious Blood Parish to utilize their parking lot for excess parking, also in hopes that it would reduce the parking that was previously occurring on our side streets. Last year, I understand they had, as a successful as possible patio summer, we received no complaints. We also reached out to the United Counties to determine if they had received any complaints with this patio taking up parking spaces, and they have not received any complaints either. So I'm pleased to have this development agreement before you this evening for renewal, because I think it's very important to support our restaurants, and hopefully they'll have a successful summer again, even with the restrictions that are put in place. And one thing I would like to point out is that last year, the province had delegated authority to municipalities to extend patio licenses on a temporary basis, given the restrictions presented by COVID. We've not received formal wording as of yet from the province. However, we have been informed by our MPP that this will be coming. And so if council approves this agreement this evening, also please note that we'll make sure that the property owner works with all of the provincial and Eastern Ontario Health Unit COVID restrictions and is not open prematurely, even though we have this before you this evening. And in working with Mr. Mustafa, he has no problems in ensuring that he'll be following all of the provincial requirements. So thank you.
Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through Mr. Mayor, Rizwan has been a champion of the Glenwalter area, along with a few other businesses. He's on the committee to raise funds for the park, and as well as the Canada Day event that happened back when you could have Canada Days. I think this is a great way to help the business out as we're still in the pandemic. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank staff for working with Sheephead Bistro and helping them to continue to make these modifications in light of the pandemic. And I also just wanted to shout out to Rizwan and just thank him for being so proactive when it came to this file and reaching out to Precious Blood and ensuring that they had a good solution for overflow parking. It's very appreciated when a business owner takes those extra steps. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions or comments? Not seeing none. I have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that staff report 66-2021 be received and that the council of the township of South Glengarry approves bylaw 37-2021, being a development agreement for the property legally described as block 82, registered plan 142 in the geographic township of Schlumberg, now in the township of South Glengarry, the county of Glengarry, also known as 18299 County Road 2, and authorizes the mayor and clerk to execute the development agreement. And furthermore, that the township of South Glengarry supports liquor sales for the temporary patio extension, providing the license can meet the eligibility and criteria requirements of the AGCO, and that all provincial and Eastern Ontario Health Unit pandemic orders are adhered to. So any other questions or comments? Not seeing none. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. Do you have anything further, Mrs. Haley? I wasn't sure if you had a comment. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I have no comment regarding this. I'm just waiting for my next staff report.
Okay,
Thank
sorry.
you.
Thank you. And number 8 is the Blue Anchor Site Plan Control Agreement. Mrs. Haley.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So everyone's also familiar with the Blue Anchor restaurant in the Glen Welter area. They recently completed a construction project to extend their outdoor patio. And this was also done due to the COVID restrictions, and it would allow them to accommodate more patrons in a physical distance manner and respecting all the rules that are required to be followed. So the purpose of this staff report this evening is to bring before council the site plan control agreement that speaks to the newly constructed patio. Prior to bringing this agreement to council, we were required to go through a minor variance process to reduce the watercourse setback to accommodate the patio new location, as well as to reduce the required parking. During that public process, we did hear from neighboring property owners that expressed some concerns with the volume of traffic that's created from the restaurant during busy summer weekends or holiday weekends. And you'll notice in the staff report and in the site plan control agreement before you that we speak to some of the requirements that the developer is expected to follow. And we've received full cooperation from the property owner. So we definitely don't have any concerns with them not following the requirements. Just to point out these requirements, one of them was to properly sign their property that they own on the north side of County Road 2 that's used for overflow parking. And they took the initiative following the public meeting of the Committee of Adjustment to start that process. They have their sign design completed. And today the United Counties issued their sign permit. So I suspect that that will be erected very, very quickly. And then in regards to additional signage that we require in the interior of the restaurant, we asked the property owner if they'd be willing to put up temporary signage. They could be printed on a home computer, just reminding people of not to park on the bikeway or bike pathway along County Road 2, in hopes that will help. Also, you may have noticed in the agreement, in one of the schedules, we speak to a requirement that the United Counties has to paint some hatched lines in the northeast corner of the property close to County Road 2. And the purpose of this is really to allow for safe ingress and egress for the adjacent property owner or the abutting property owner directly to the east. In the agreement, the information that I had provided to you was provided to the property owner a week ago Tuesday, once I completed writing the agreement. And the property owner had requested to the counties if he could slightly reduce that area. And so the United County staff met with the property owner, and they were able to come to an agreement that they can reduce it. So the agreement that's before you is, in terms of the Schedule B, is not entirely accurate. So with your permission, if council will allow us, we would like to just amend that agreement, and the drawings are going to look identical. Other than that, the hatch lines will be in a little bit of a smaller area to be more in line in front of the garage of the abutting property. So the intent of the agreement is not changing. None of the timelines or anything like that. It's just more so to better identify the exact area that needs to be painted. So I hope council has no concerns with that. We just feel if we have your permission this evening to amend that schedule, then it would save us from bringing it back to council and causing a delay for the property owner to continue to move forward as they would like to receive their building permit for the deck. Other than bringing those items to your attention, I have nothing further to add, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Yeah, I have no problem with that. When I was looking at the map, it did seem like, that we were going back beside the neighbor's garage, and it didn't seem to make 100% sense. So no, I think we should go ahead and get this moving so that they can get on with it. And I'm glad to see that they've been so cooperative and are, doing everything they can to get this moving forward.
Okay, thank you. So Joanne, the lines will go to the northern part of his garage. Is that where the line's going to stop? Is that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, they're going to start in front of the garage and then go north to County Road 2.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Jaworski?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Haley. Thanks for your work on incorporating some of the comments from Committee of Adjustment into the site plan. And also, it's fantastic to hear that the property owner has already, gone ahead and been really proactive in implementing some of that work already prior to the agreement being finalized. So that's great news, and thank you to them.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Sam McDonnell. Be resolved that staff report 68-2021 be received and bylaw number 39-2021, being a bylaw to adopt a community improvement plan, including the United Counties of SD&G Regional Incentive Program, be read a first, second, third time, passed, signed, and sealed.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, I think you skipped a resolution.
Oh, yes, I did. Sorry, I have it right in front of me. My apologies. I have a motion moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that staff report 67-2021 be received and bylaw 38-2021, being a bylaw to approve a site plan control agreement for the property legally described as west part of lot 4 and east part of lot 5, concession 1, Broken Front Indian Lands, in the geographic township of Schellenberg, now in the township of South Glengarry, also known as the Blue Anchor Restaurant, located at 18392 County Road 2. Be read a first, second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this third day of May 2021. And furthermore, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the site plan control agreement. All in favor of the motion? The motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, and number 9 is the Community Improvement Plan Amendment. Mrs. Haley and Mrs. Baggs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll introduce the staff report and then turn it over to Ms. Baggs. So the Community Improvement Plan is a tool that's permitted under Section 28 of the Ontario Planning Act. So the process to amend the Community Improvement Plan has to follow the requirements of the Act in terms of a public meeting, making sure the public's aware of the changes. Our council approved our Community Improvement Plan in 2018, and the Community Improvement Plan includes the Regional Incentive Program, which is a program that was created by the United Counties. The reason why it's included in our Community Improvement Plan is because the legislation does not permit upper tiers to have their own plan. Everything is required to go through a single tier or lower tier municipality. So in 2020, we amended our plan to make some minor changes to better accommodate our areas in the CIP in South Glengarry. And then it was recently amended again to accommodate the changes that the United Counties felt was required to make the plan a better plan to accommodate more businesses and property owners. So Ms. Baggs is now going to explain some of those changes to council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Baggs.
Good evening, everyone. I was just going to share my screen, but I have a few screens going, so I just want to make sure that you can see. Here we go. There we go. Can you see that okay?
I believe if you're looking at a map, yes.
Okay. Oh, you can see a map? Okay, let's try this. There we go. Okay, so sorry about that. Are you able to see this screen okay?
It's a summary of changes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this presentation was done by Tara Kirkpatrick, the new Manager of Economic Development at the counties. It was for the public meeting that took place on April the 8th. This is basically just kind of going to run down the different sections that have changed that with the document that you have in front of you, just to give you some context for them. There's 3 sections that I find throughout the changes that are big changes. Most of the changes that the counties are suggesting are just based on feedback and just housekeeping kind of changes to make sure that applicants understand a little bit better and the flow of the program happens a little bit more efficiently. So the first change is, again, just housekeeping, changing the definition of tourism and how it relates within the document. So now tourism will be part of agritourism, which is a better fit for what the program is all about. The second removal is this particular section, and this is one of the big ones that are be changing within the document. So before trails were part of the regional incentive program, they were really well received, and they did receive a lot of funds throughout the last couple of years. When the feedback was coming through and upon further research and discussion, it was decided that the trails would be better fit potentially somewhere else. So that section of the regional incentive program has been removed. There was discussion that it may now be included in the tourism grant at the county level, but it won't be part of the regional incentive program anymore. This is the second big one that has changed in the RIP, or Regional Incentive Program. Municipalities and other government or quasi-government organizations like conservation authorities, schools, hospitals, libraries, etc., are no longer eligible for funding. So part of that trail system where conservation authorities really took advantage of the Regional Incentive Program, they're no longer able to, and hopefully the counties will be able to come up with a different funding program for them, like the tourism grant. The next section is basically just, again, housekeeping, kind of rearranging the committee format, how many people are on it, who is represented, if there needs to be any changes or if there needs to be any shifts throughout the evaluation period, then that is addressed within these changes as well. Again, these both of these are again just housekeeping. The properties may be eligible for grants, however, you can't combine them for over a maximum of $50,000. So if somebody is applying for a grant and there's multiple components within the application that they qualify for, their total amount received can't exceed $50,000. And they can't, they can't apply after 2 years. So just to qualify that, any applicant that has applied since 2018 up until this point, the anticipated intake is June of this year, after all of the townships have gone to council and the notice of passing has been approved. Then anybody who's applied between 2018 and now can reapply June intake of this year. However, moving forward, if you are a successful applicant, you have to wait 2 years before reapplying to the program again. Building fees and design fees, planning, all that planning stuff. That in previous, the previous grant, you were able to retroactively get funds for these particular parts of your project. Moving forward, these parts will only be considered after your project's been approved, so it will be retroactive. This is mainly just housekeeping for funds, 50%. It's basically just saying that to clarify things for applicants, you can't add stuff if you've been approved. You have to stick within your application. It can't go over 50% and you'll only be paid out on that amount. This section is specific to building expansion. So this is kind of nice that it now includes things like excavation, land clearing, private water and wastewater, wells, sewer, septic, all that kind of stuff. So it just expands on the project scope that applicants can apply for. And just there's 2 more. So this has really been a successful program for our township. There's a couple of different businesses who have been able to take advantage of the parking lot, paving their parking lot. And as you've probably experienced, the difference is really, really evident for going from a gravel parking lot to a nice paved parking lot with painting, the lines painted, and accessible spots indicated and all that stuff. So it makes a big difference. What the new program will be doing, however, is that you can no longer just apply for paving. You have to include that in some other part of your project. So if you're applying for landscaping, paving can be included in that. Or if you're applying for another portion of the regional incentive program, you can add paving in addition to, but it can't be the sole project you apply for. And this part is my favorite part of the new program. It splits the conversion or expansion grant into 2. So before, you had to have a space that was 5,000 square feet or above in order to qualify for the expansion grant. And in our municipality, as well as across the board throughout SDNG, there's a lot of different applicants that would have been able to take advantage of the program, but their space was just not 5,000 square feet. It might have been 3,500 square feet or 4,000 square feet. So that this particular change to the program is really going to make a difference. And I'm really hoping to see a lot more people take advantage of it and put it to good use, because it's taking those old sections of buildings, or they're underused sections of buildings, or underused space, and making something of it. So this is my favorite part of the new changes. And last but not least, it's just a slight modification to what's considered roofed accommodations. So the original document included campgrounds, cottage rentals, and trailer parks. And those 3 things have now been removed. So roofed accommodations are for 4-season short-term, and they include hotels, motels, bed and breakfasts. So that's kind of a recap on what all the changes are for the new regional incentive. Moving forward, if council approves this evening, then we would send out a notice of passing, and we wait the 20-day appeal period. The final 20-day appeal period will be done by the Township of North Dundas, and they're expected, if everything goes smoothly, to be finished the last week of May, first week of June. And then once that happens, then the county will then launch the new regional incentive program and open it up for intake. The intake's only going to be a couple of weeks for the first one, just to kind of get everything running. There's a lot of projects kind of sitting in the hopper. And then after that, they'll do a secondary intake again in the summer, because the dollars have to be spent before the end of the year. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation, Mrs. Baggs. If you can get out of the presentation so I can see all members of council.
There we go.
Okay, thank you. A quick question, if I can, before I go to members of council. The 2-year calendar, if you can't apply for the 2 years, if you're a successful applicant, could there be a clause in there that if at some point we may not have enough or as many applications as we have now? So at some point, could it be that if there's not enough applications, that they may have that opportunity to go in within that 2 years, or are we just sticking to that 2 years, even if we have none?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe it is right now, it's waiting till 2 years. You have to wait for the 2 years to be able to reapply. But that's a really good point, and I can bring that up with the counties.
And I'm not saying it'll happen today or tomorrow, but at some point we may run out of people that want to, send an application in. So if I'm ready to put an application in, but there's nobody doing it, I still have to wait 2 years to do that. I'm just wondering if there's an amendment, could be something else could be written after that.
The nice thing about this program is that it's a living, breathing document. Yeah. So like with our CIP program, it changes as things change around us. So in a couple of years, if that's the case where we find that we've maybe hit a limit or there's a cap or development isn't as strong as it has been over the last couple of years, then we can definitely change it. So this won't be the first time that it comes in front of you. It'll be something that's fairly consistent over like a couple of years. There'll be changes.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. But if you could just have that quick conversation with them to see if we can implement it now, I would appreciate it in case it's forgotten again later. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Shauna, thanks very much for the presentation. I also sit on this committee at both levels, counties and the local. I think all the changes that are proposed are going to definitely enhance the project and kind of fix a few loopholes that kind of were negative, i.e. the size of the building specifically. And to the mayor's point about the 2 year, it's a very good point. I think at this point, Mr. Mayor, there's tons of applicants, but I think you raise a very good point that in the future, if it does slow down and council still wants to support it, that's something that could be looked at. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? I do have a motion moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Sam McDonnell. Be resolved that staff report 68-2021 be received and that bylaw number 39-2021, being a bylaw to adopt a community improvement plan, including the United Counties of ST&G Regional Incentive Program, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 3rd day of May 2021. You heard the motion. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Thanks very much, Mrs. Baggs, for the presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go into B, other business. The first one is the 2021 roads project update. Mr. LeBlanc.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, Mr. Mayor, this information report brought to you this evening outlines the work that was scheduled and overlays, skin patching, pulverized resurfacing, cold recycling, and granular overlay. So some of these, this year we decided that we would, administration decided that we could defer some of these projects to be able to fix base repairs, drainage improvements, and culvert replacements in some of these areas. And the savings by deferring the costs is a savings of $645,000. Now, potential projects that could result from the savings would help with the drainage improvements, with the base repairs, and culvert replacements. So administration is seeking council's feedback and direction regarding the proposed projects outlined and would be completed with the result of the savings from the deferred projects. All proposed work is subject to council's approval, and the report will be brought to a subsequent meeting with estimated costs and work to be completed.
Okay, so just for clarification, before I go to questions.
Okay.
So the extra work that you want to take on this year in regards to replacing culverts or any drainage work will come out of that 645,000?
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make that, just want a clarification before I go to, so I'll go to Councillor Lang, Councillor McDonnell, and then Deputy Mayor Warden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. And thank you, Mr. LeBlanc, for the presentation. I think it will be reasonably well received. I think there was some projects that we had on for this year that would, especially with the possibility of gas in one of the villages and stuff, that it would be good to put off a little bit. And my one question / point comment maybe is I see Heron Road, McGilvery Road as needing 18 and 19 culverts replaced. Because of the way things are working out with this year's budget, we won't be hard servicing any roads. There'll be no tar and chip this year by the looks of it, which is unusual for us. We've been trying to get some done every year. So my hope is that when you change these culverts on Heron and McGilvery, that you're able to also improve the drainage that needs to be done there, the ditching and so forth. Because my wish is that we're able to put tar and chip on Heron and McGilvery next year. That's my kind of hope, that because we've taken a year off, we're not doing any of our roads. We've kind of stepped back a little bit from trying to do a little bit every year. So I'm hoping we can do those two next year. And if we are going to, then obviously the culverts need to be done, but I'm hoping the drainage can be done as well. That's my 2 cents in there, and the rest of it all looks good. Thank you.
So just to further that comment, Mr. LeBlanc, if you can answer that question, will Huron Road and McGilvery Road be ready to be surface treated next year once we're done the work that you're asking for to get done this year?
I don't, in the 645,000, I don't think that will cover it completely. The culverts there on Heron Road, that's all 18 culverts. There are 18 culverts on the Heron Road, and all of them need to be replaced.
Are we doing those in-house, or are we contracting them out?
We might have to contract some out. I don't know if we'll be able to accommodate that. I'm looking into possible cured in place. It's a liner that goes inside the culvert, and it does help. It helps. It saves a lot of time.
So the question, I think, to go on further from Councillor Lang, is how much more work do we need to do on Huron Road and McGilvery Road to make sure that the drainage is done properly before we even think of paving or tarring and chipping those roads?
Yes, we definitely need to do some ditching. We need to replace those culverts or rehabilitate those culverts. And I'm thinking it could be this year, it could be next year, best case scenario.
As in this year or next year, you're talking about drainage, or you're talking about tar and chip?
I'm talking about drainage. I'm talking about drainage and resurfacing, gravel resurfacing, and then we can do our tar and chip. We could do the gravel resurfacing and the tar and chip in the same year.
Okay, so what you're saying is the 645,000 won't cover the 18 culverts on Huron, the 19 culverts on McGilvery, plus all the extra drainage work that we require.
That's correct.
Do we know of any idea in regards to numbers to get it up to speed in respect of having it ready to be surfaced next year?
I'm working on the numbers for the culvert rehabilitation. I will have those shortly.
Okay, so that's for the 19 and the 18?
That's correct.
And you know, not to put you on the spot, and I don't need an answer tonight, but if you can give us an idea of what it's going to cost to do the proper drainage on both those roads completely so that we're ready to go with tar and chip. Certainly don't want to tar and chip a road if we're not having the proper drainage.
Right.
But maybe we can look at either shuffling other stuff around or look at our reserves in regards to getting these things done, because my goal would be to have every road paved or tar and chipped over the next number of years, just to have we have to make sure we have the proper drainage first. So if we can get numbers on both the culverts replacement and the drainage to to rectify both those roads to see if we can come up with the dollars for this year so that we can move on to tar and chip for next year if we can. I'll go to Mr. Mills because I'm sure it's a comment in regards to this issue, and then I'll go to Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a caution on on getting an estimate for costs. That when you're talking about that dollar amount, we can certainly talk to our the consultant who completed the review of our roads, but that's something that would have to be it's an estimate.
That's all I'm looking for.
Maybe a ballpark, but at the same time, we're gonna have to go out to tender for that. So
100%. No, I'm just looking for an estimate to see if it's something that we can bring out of reserves to see if we can resolve this issue for 2021. And again, I agree with you. We'll have to go out to tender for the culverts and the ditching if that's what it comes down to. But I'm just trying to get some rough idea in regards to what.
Okay, I'll work with Mr. LeBlanc also. I know the treasurer's online here, Mr. McDonald, working on the asset management plan. So similar to what you had earlier in the night with the fleet review, we need to do a comprehensive review looking at cost and asset management on this file.
Yep, no, for sure. Okay, thank you. Councillor Lang.
Yeah, just as a supplemental, I understand we have to go to tender depending on what we end up doing, but if we can do quite a bit of it in-house, which is what I'm hoping, then we won't have to go to tender on that. So I'd like to see us kind of figure out how much we can possibly get done this summer, and then look at getting the rest of it in line there.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks again, Mr. LeBlanc, for this report. I think there's a lot of good coming here. I like to see. I'm glad to see that the Glendale's been put off, just based on that we've been hearing from Enbridge for years that it's next on their list, and maybe COVID has slowed them down. But hopefully, we can see that that road reconstruction done after the natural gas has been put into that subdivisions. Again, I'll agree with Councillor Lang that Heron Road and McGilvery Road are definitely a priority for me. But I agree with the mayor. If it's not 645, is it $1 million? Is it 800? It'd just be nice to know whereabouts that number is going to come up. I know for sure myself, I'd like to see Frog Hollow Road, the spot repairs there. If you want to call it a spot, I think it's more of a stretch of about 600 meters there that just needs to be completely redone. And the second line road bridge, for sure, the rehabilitation on there is a priority for myself. But other than that, there's a lot in there that be great to see done. But yeah, for sure, the priorities for me are Heron, McGilvery, and Frog Hollow and the second line bridge. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Chris, thanks again for your report. Will there be any work done in the village of Lancaster? I think you'll all remember when we drove through our hamlets, some of those streets are horrible, and we have done a fantastic job of tar and chipping our concession roads. But I feel at the cost of since I've been on council anyways, I feel at the cost of our hamlets. You guys would remember Warren Street in Williamstown, Middle Street, the whole northeast corner of, actually the whole village of Lancaster north of the tracks is horrible. I have no problem deferring because there is a huge issue with the drainage there, but I would like to see the savings put into that. Just so we can say to our residents, look, we're deferring another year, but we're digging the ditches this year. So I'm hoping to see something along those lines. And maybe, I know it's a wish list, but I'd like to see, if possible, some money put into our little hamlets, if possible.
Yeah, you don't get it.
Okay, thank you. So I think you know what council is looking for, Mr. LeBlanc. So if you can work on those numbers and come back. Oh, sorry, Councillor Jaworski.
I think I was putting up my hand at the wrong time. No, thank you, through Mr. Mayor. So, Mr. LeBlanc, thank you for your report. I did want to say that with regards to what staff is suggesting, that they defer, that makes a lot of sense to make sure that we do the job the best we can the first time. With regards to the proposed options that we could look at it instead. I mean, my recollection of the costs with regards to Heron Road that were presented the last time, I mean, they were very, very, very large numbers. So, and I understand that was also an estimate, but certainly I want you to be able to investigate this and come back with more clear numbers. I understand it'll still be an estimate. It's not till later in the process that you get really firm numbers, but I think we need a lot more information really to understand if it's even feasible to be able to do what we're hoping to do in terms of having Heron Road, tar and chipped next year. I agree completely that Heron, McGillivray, those are roads that need to be done. And to second what Deputy Mayor Warden said about the village north of the tracks, we saw some really bad examples of conditions, and even some places in South Lancaster too. But I think we need some more numbers to be able to really prioritize better. So I look forward to the research that you come back with to us.
Okay, thank you. So again, Mr. LeBlanc, I think you know what the council is looking forward to bring back at a later council meeting.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, may I make a quick comment?
Sure.
I just want to thank Mr. LeBlanc for attending. I had a call from a resident on the weekend. Somebody or somehow the stop sign in the Glendale subdivision was removed, and I was told that staff took care of it yesterday. So I just want to thank you for that, Mr. LeBlanc.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Okay, we'll move in regards to the letter to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Mrs. Campo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Council, this afternoon, you would have received a letter from me forwarded from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. And for the benefit of the public, I'm just going to share my screen. Bear with me a second here. So this letter, again, is from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. You may have heard that they are currently going through a consultation period seeking input from municipalities regarding accountability for councils, particularly with regards to codes of conduct. So the ministry is looking for one member of our council to attend a town hall session on May the 20th at 1:45 p.m. And this is an opportunity to share feedback on what mechanisms are needed to hold council members accountable for violations of code of conducts, input on how to enforce the codes, as well as input on the penalties and circumstances where penalties can be applied. So essentially this evening, I'm just looking for some feedback as to whether or not there's a member of council who would like to participate in this consultation. And if so, I can register you for that consultation meeting to provide some input on behalf of South Glengarry.
Thank you. Just to let council know that I'm already participating in this meeting as the warden of the three United Counties. So it'd be nice if somebody else attended on behalf of South Glengarry. But if not, then I can represent both. But if somebody's interested in representing South Glengarry, you're more than welcome to do so. Councillor McDonnell.
I would say if her schedule would allow it, I would nominate Councillor Jaworski to take leadership on that if there's no interested parties.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Yeah, I don't mind, Mr. Mayor, attending. I'm available that day. I think it'd be interesting. So I'll put my name forward if that's okay.
Okay, thank you. Comments, Councillor Jaworski?
I would love it if Deputy Mayor Warden would like to volunteer for this activity. As much as I appreciate Councillor McDonnell mentioning my name, and I do find it interesting, my tank is empty right now with the 3 kids at home doing online learning. So thank you for the opportunity, but I'll pass this time.
Okay.
Okay, thanks very much. So Mrs. Campo will be Deputy Mayor Warden that will represent the municipality. And again, I'll be there as the warden of the county. So
Perfect. I'll take care of the registration for that, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the next one is the emergency preparedness week. Sorry, Mrs. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry about that. So this week, always the first week of May is Emergency Preparedness Week in the province of Ontario, as well as in Canada. You'll see lots of different messaging coming across different news networks or TV networks. So I think it's important for us to proclaim Emergency Preparedness Week to inform our residents that we do our best to be prepared during an emergency. I think we've all been exhausted in terms of dealing with COVID and listening to COVID, but we have to be prepared for all types of emergencies, not just pandemics. So I appreciate you reading this very long proclamation. I'm sorry that you have to do that this evening, but I'm sure you'll do a great job. And our communications coordinator, Shauna Beggs, is providing daily communications to our residents through social media and our website in promoting emergency preparedness. And we usually get great feedback from both the province on our messaging as well as from our residents. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so I will read it now. It's be it resolved that the Township of South Glengarry does recognize the importance of an emergency management in Ontario, and the goal of an Emergency Preparedness Week is to raise community awareness and the need to be prepared within 72 hours for the possibility of an emergency. And whereas during the Emergency Preparedness Week, Ontario residents will identify and learn about risks in their communities and how they can protect themselves, knowing the potential hazards and risks you face. Planning ahead and being prepared are the best steps to ensure that you and your family will survive an emergency or disaster. And whereas although focused on personal preparedness, Emergency Preparedness Week also carries messages for business owners, municipal officials, utility operators, ensuring business continuity and updating emergency plans are all just as crucial in assuring community preparedness. And whereas all levels of government have an important role to play in emergency preparedness and response, but ultimately, emergency preparedness is the responsibility of each and every one of us. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Frank Prevost, do hereby proclaim the week of May 2nd to May 8th, 2021 as an Emergency Preparedness Week in the Township of South Glengarry, and encourage all citizens to begin today and learn how to prepare now for a safer tomorrow. Thank you very much. And next, we have number 7, Resolution Road Management. Councillor Lang.
Mr. Mills was looking to speak first.
All right, apologize, Mr. Mills.
Okay, I'm easy to miss. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just to follow up on the great job that Mrs. Haley has done with emergency preparedness over the last number of years. We administration has recognized the need to train more staff. So on top of Mrs. Haley and Mrs. Baggs, we have 3 other staff that are currently undergoing emergency training and will be qualified. So, you know, the cross-training piece and the team approach on emergency training as well as what we're working on that too. So I want to thank all the staff that's involved.
Yeah, thank you. Cross-training is the way to go. So thanks very much for that. Number 8, so the resolution roads management, Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. And it has to do with fragmites, which if anybody isn't sure is that tall stuff along the, you see it mostly along the 401, but it is all throughout our township. And I'm just thinking by the look of this resolution that came through here that maybe it's just getting to Perry Sound and they're starting to get nervous about it up there. But and it just jogged my mind a little bit to think about it. And I don't need an answer tonight, but if just wondered if we have kind of given up in this municipality or if we are still doing anything to try to control it or, you know, even knock it back a bit, and as well at the county level. So I'm just throwing it out there, and maybe staff could get me an answer at some point. Just wondering if, and maybe Mr. Mills knows right now. I'm not sure.
I'm going to ask Mr. Blanc to come on. We had a conversation about this afternoon. I know he was doing a little bit of research with the counties and with the RRCA. I don't know if he has full answer for you now, but certainly a little bit of an answer, and then maybe some more investigation we need to do.
Yes, I did reach out to the counties today and the Raisin Region Conservation Authority. I have not received any feedback as of yet on how they handle their practice. I know we do roadside cutting, and there's some in some of the areas, but I will follow. I can follow up with the weed inspector of the counties and the Raisin Region Conservation Authority. I can get an answer back to you.
Thank you very much. That's all I'm kind of looking for, and just kind of putting it out there so that we don't forget that it's there. I guess we've kind of got accustomed to seeing it around here, but I hope we don't give up, and maybe we can kind of keep it from getting any worse. Thanks.
So Councillor Lang, are you just looking for information for our own municipality? You're not looking for a motion at a later date in regards to supporting the other municipality, or?
No, and it's hard to see exactly what they're looking for when you read it. They've got about 6 or 8 there for us, and a further finally be resolved. And so I think they're just putting it out there. They're looking for help at their local county level. I think they're looking for some funding, but I mean, I suspect that those of us in the east, I think it's kind of originated down here along the 401, and I think we're way past that point.
Okay, thank you. So Mr. Blah, if you can get that information, bring it back at a later council meeting, we would appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, there was nothing else under information purposes.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Warden.
Yeah, I apologize. I wanted to bring forward earlier, I was having the Wharf Concert Series. I just wanted to speak to that real quickly. It's Miss Baggs' report was at the start of the list. I just think it'll be great. I know that we're still in this third wave, but you know what? I think the show must go on, and I think that planning for some sort of events this summer, albeit in a distance manner, I think is great for our municipality, and I just wanted to throw my support behind that report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. And I am sorry I didn't bring it up earlier.
No, that's fine. That's fair. Thank you very much. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank Deputy Mayor Warden for bringing that one up. That was that's one I think we should, I feel bad for not having it raised myself. So thank you very much for bringing that up. And I think we should, I think that's definitely something we should support, particularly considering the times.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. We certainly need to keep moving forward and try and do the best we can under the circumstances to try and bring good spirits to South Glengarry over this difficult time. So, so we look forward to seeing more events like that, Mrs. Baggs. Mrs. Compo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. It looks like Ms. Baggs has logged off, but I will share with her council's support of that initiative. I know she's been doing a lot of work in the background, working with this member of the community who brought this forward, and our internal staff, and looking at ways that we can help move this forward. So I will pass that message along to her, and we'll keep you updated as we move along.
Perfect. Thank you. It's a great idea. Thank you. Okay, I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Lyle Warden. Be resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry accepts the items presented on the agenda as committee reports and for information purposes only. For the motion, all in favor? Motion's carried. And if there's nothing further, I have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Sam McDonnell. Be resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry convene to close session at 8:54 p.m. to discuss the following items under Section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001. A meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered is labor relations or employee negotiations, restaffing, position, plan, procedure, criteria of instructions to be applied to negotiations, re-instructions for negotiations. You heard the motion. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. So we will now go into closed session.